Now, there are a lot of details that the IMAX preview has given, but usually it's been the trailer as well as the first 10 minutes of Dune. Here I'm going to go into details about the so-called harvester scene that some people got to see, but others did not. I'm going to forewarn this is from secondhand sources, so take them with a little bit of grain of salt because I could not verify them myself. What is occurring? In the books, the harvester scene is much more detailed, obviously, and we know why it's happening. Apparently, it's a Harkonnen sabotage. But in the film, it's a little bit more obscure. Essentially, what happens is that Liet Kynes, with the Duke and Gurney, as well as Paul, is overseeing spice operations. The Duke is very interested. He asks a lot of questions on how day-to-day operations occur. And suddenly, there's a big accident, and a sandworm is coming. So the Duke jumps into action. Leto tries to save the men. We see the Ornithopters, and they look like dragonflies. If you've seen the trailer, you've already seen how the Ornithopters look, and apparently they look very impressive. They navigate the Ornithopters to save the men. We don't see the worm into its entirety, but it looks huge. It looks really massive. It looks really epic. And the sandworm essentially swallows a crawler. So we see a bit of the sandworm, and apparently it looks very impressive and very epic in scope. And Liet Kynes is very impressed that Duke Leto cared more about the men than the money, because right, these are spice operations, and they're on Arrakis to essentially make sure the operations go smoothly. There is one minor variation from the books, however, and that is that Paul experiences a vision because he's so close to the spice. Somehow the spice interacts with his mind. Now, this is shown in the first 10 minutes that he sort of has this kind of cacophony of voices over his head. That's how he's experiencing visions. So apparently he has a very kind of potent encounter with the spice mentally, and we get to see that. So we're going to see a sort of Paul overwhelmed by being so close to Dune and the spice. But other than that, actually, Denis is being very faithful to the book. Apparently, the dialogue is word for word what occurs in the novel. So if you're worried that he's completely changing everything, no, he is keeping a lot of the book intact. So the dialogue in the scene apparently is totally identical. There is, of course, the detail that Liet Kynes himself is now a woman, so it's not a man speaking, but other than that, apparently the dialogue has not been tampered with. If you've read the book, the scene plays out like it plays out in the book, except for the Harkonnen angle that's apparently been either totally abandoned or it's more obscure. That's been tweaked. But in terms of the way they talk and what actually happens in the scene, that's virtually the same as in the book, except for the vision by Paul. So if you wanted to see a lot of the ornithopters and you want to see the worm, that's what's going to happen in the harvester scene. And we've already seen little bits and pieces of the worm, so you can probably visualize in your mind what is going to occur. Again, it's mainly a character building scene, but we do see the ornithopters, we do see Paul having a vision. So a lot is occurring in the harvester scene, but obviously it's sort of teasing just the sheer massive scope that Denis Villeneuve is going to kind of film Dune in that style, where it's not clear that they're using model or CGI or we're actually getting the real thing onto itself. So it's a really interesting scene, and hopefully when the movie comes out, it really won't be changed because they've, again, sliced off a little bit of Dune for the running time. All right, and this has been a look at the harvester scene in the upcoming adaptation of Dune by Denis Villeneuve. Thank you for listening.